Take a breath.
Well, good Thursday morning, October 10th. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning as we bring you things you need to know what's going on in and around Illinois. Go to thecentersquare.com for the latest headlines and also get the newsletter there. But if you can't make the show live, check out the segments with America's Talking Network and also get the podcast with Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, we're going to talk about the latest in the trial against former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan. We'll also hear what former Governor Pat Quinn has to say about that. But the former governor was also out promoting the millionaires surcharge that's on the ballot as an advisory question, so we'll hear about that. But we may also delve into the latest out of Chicago with Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson holding a news event with some city council action under their belt yesterday, and what exactly he's talking about, and in particular with the ShotSpotter technology that he essentially ended. So we'll get to all of that here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and be with us each and every weekday morning with America's Talking Network. Former Illinois House Speaker Mike Madigan making his way to the federal court building in Chicago yesterday. The Center Square's Jim Talamonte there, capturing the moments that he walks by some video cameras and doesn't really say anything, doesn't really even make eye contact. But clearly, it's a pretty historic trial. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Thanks for being with us. Jury selection continuing with the prospect of filling out the panel, including some alternates. But as that's underway, we're starting to see some of the questions being asked to the jurors who could be on, but also those who are removed. So Mike Madigan facing almost 24 corruption charges from a scheme that federal prosecutors say lasted nearly a decade. So let's go ahead and take a look at Jim Talamonte's latest story here. 3 jurors have been selected for the corruption trial of former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan and Illinois Democratic Party Chair. He served as the House Speaker for all but 2 years between 1984 to 2021, or was it 83 to 2021? He was the Democratic Party chair from 1998 until 2021, but he'd been in the House since the 70s, so he had a 50-year career before stepping down. But Madigan and co-defendant Michael McLean, they arrived separately at the federal building yesterday morning. Judge John Roberts Blakey opened proceedings explaining rules of conduct for potential jurors. He also told jurors that the court would move as fairly and efficiently as possible to honor their sacrifice. The judge advised jurors that this trial is going to last about 10 weeks. Only 5 potential jurors took questions from the judge, prosecutors, and defense attorneys yesterday. Blakey asked attorneys on both sides about the possibility of adjusting the estimated trial length in the court's explanations to jurors, but attorneys agreed to economize time, and the judge moved forward without any changes. In the afternoon session after lunch, Defense attorneys asked different potential jurors about their favorite television shows and postings on social media. In one case, a defense attorney asked a potential juror about religious beliefs. In another case, a question was asked about a potential juror's favorite flavor of frozen yogurt. 17 potential jurors were released early in the afternoon based on answers to a questionnaire they filled out on Tuesday morning. Attorneys questioned 5 potential jurors individually in the afternoon, making a total of 10 jurors who were screened in the courtroom on Wednesday. A second group of jurors heard instructions and answered questions with a show of hands Wednesday afternoon. And you've got observers, including Republican State Representative Patrick Windhorst, saying that the jury pool already being whittled down quite significantly. Windhorst said that both prosecutors and defense attorneys will be looking for juror sympathy to their arguments. So both sides looking to get the jurors who are going to be sympathetic to them. Windhorst said that the object of jury selection is to get a fair jury that will consider the evidence and determine the facts of the case and get just results. Now, Madigan's defense team had asked potential jurors if they believed that nobody should be a politician for life, if they felt Chicago politicians were corrupt, and if any of them would leave Illinois if they could due to taxes, regulation, or other factors. Jim Talamonte reporting from being in the courtroom yesterday. Attorneys also asked potential jurors if they had affiliations with unions or had strong feelings one way or the other about unions. The judge accepted a waiver from Madigan's co-defendant, Michael McLean, requesting that he not be required to be present for every moment of the trial. McLean's attorneys had discussed the issue with the judge during a pretrial meeting earlier in the week. So a lot of attention is being given to this. Madigan appeared to be attentive throughout the proceedings Wednesday. He was reading through papers, occasionally writing things down. He faces 23 counts of bribery, racketeering, and official misconduct. Jury selection continuing today in that federal court building. So again, they got to get the jury picked. Then they're looking at possibly having Tuesday being when opening statements are. And of course, the Center Square team will be in Chicago covering this and bringing out those reports. So be sure to go to thecentersquare.com for the latest. Former Governor Pat Quinn was in Springfield yesterday on an unrelated event promoting something, but I was able to ask him about the ongoing Madigan trial now. And is Madigan in for some comeuppance?
Well, I vetoed the ComEd bills in 2011 and 2013. I thought they were very bad proposals for consumers.
And the ComEd bill, by the way, is really kind of central to what federal prosecutors are alleging against Madigan, alleging that he was in a conspiracy with ComEd to get favors for himself and his political allies in exchange for ushering in legislation that gives ComEd billions of dollars in rate increases. There were 2 different pieces of legislation that went through, and Pat Quinn talking about that yesterday when I asked him if Mike Madigan's in for some comeuppance.
I vetoed them as governor. And Attorney General Lisa Madigan supported my vetoes, and she worked with me. And we said this was a very bad way to go. Nobody knew that there was alleged bribery going on. And I told the speaker back then that this was a mistake. But he proceeded to vote in favor of those bills and vote for the override twice in 2011 and 2013. And I think he should have taken my advice and his daughter's advice back then and not gotten involved in that. And we'll see what the court system and the justice system produces. I believe in the fair system of justice, but the jury will speak.
What you've seen so far, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's just begun, So.
Well, even from the ComEd 4 trial and the evidence that was presented there.
Well, the jury's...
Again, I asked the former governor about the ComEd 4 trial because, he says he hopes for, just outcome and a fair trial. But we already had one delving into this issue, and that was the ComEd 4 trial, where 4 individuals, including Madigan's co-defendant Mike McLean, already found guilty from a jury in Chicago. And they're still awaiting sentencing on that. But the former governor reacting to what he saw then and what he thinks that could mean for now.
I spoke there. I think one of the meaningful things that came out of that is jurors came out after that verdict and pleaded with members of the legislature today to enact stronger ethics standards in our state. What they heard in that testimony on the ComEd 4 trial was very disturbing to everyday people who are the heart and soul of our state. And they pleaded with the legislature to act. They haven't acted, and I think it's important in the coming year, especially with this trial going on, that Illinois enact stronger ethics standards. When I was governor, I proposed a conflict of interest law to prevent legislators with financial interests in voting on bills. We don't have that in Illinois. Most states do, but our state does not. It's advisory, and it's violated a lot. So we need to tighten that up. And hopefully the events of this year will lead the powers that be, the state constitutional officers and the legislature, to enact these tough ethical standards. I believe, you probably heard me before at this very stand, I believe in an ethics initiative. If you lived in places like Ohio or Michigan or Missouri, not nearby neighbors, voters by binding referendum through initiative petitions can put ethics measures for their elected officials on the ballot. And we need to do that in Illinois. We need an ethics initiative in the Constitution, separate and distinct, obviously, from what we're talking about today.
So, again, former Governor Pat Quinn, who worked with Madigan for years, reacting to the start of the corruption trial against the former Illinois House Speaker. Things are going to get really fascinating as we move forward over the next 10 weeks. We'll do what we can to keep you updated. I believe I'm going to check in with Jim Talamonte tomorrow morning and bring him on to get more of the flavor from inside the courtroom as to how things are playing out. So looking forward to that conversation with the Center Square's reporter in Chicago, Jim Talamonte. All right, so be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay up to date with Illinois in Focus Daily. Been several weeks since the city of Chicago ended the ShotSpotter gun detection technology, and there's still a lot of concerns that removing that's making the streets less safe. Welcome in Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning for the live show. But also you can get the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus. And what do we got? Well, of course, in Chicago, the ShotSpotter technology implemented years ago, yes, cost taxpayers dollars, but what it did was provide police somewhat real-time data of detected firing of guns in the city and whether or not that would be something prompting police to show up. Well, Mayor Brandon Johnson, before he was elected in Chicago, campaigned on getting rid of the technology, saying it doesn't work, alluding to it being targeted towards certain neighborhoods and in a way almost characterizing it as racist. But he ended that contract several weeks ago. But now there's a move afoot from Chicago City Aldermen to essentially bring it back and to have a dedicated funding stream of sorts. Listen, there's been a lot of different types of movements that Chicago City Council members have attempted. They thought that they could possibly pass something to remove the mayor from making a decision on this. That didn't advance. There was some conversation that this could come up during yesterday's Chicago City Council meeting, which was close to 5 hours long. But obviously, nothing transpired. The mayor was asked about it at a post-council meeting news conference. We'll touch on some of what he had to say there. But some of the other things that were brought up during the Chicago City Council meeting yesterday included the issue of, well, migrant funding, education, the city's budget deficit, And all of those things wrapped in with public comments during that city council meeting yesterday. So if you get a chance, it's right at the beginning. You can watch all those public comments, and they range from people talking about environmental concerns to those still frustrated with the large number of tax dollars going to non-citizens in the city, and everything in between, including the issue of ShotSpotter. But with ShotSpotter no longer in effect in Chicago, again, some Chicago aldermen looking to try to get some funding for that. But here's the mayor yesterday responding to questions about ShotSpotter. And go.
After the last council meeting, you said you would veto the ShotSpotter ordinance, and I'd be interested to know why your approach changed and what your thought process was.
Yeah, it's a good question, and thank you for that question, by the way. Look, I've said all along, and I think one of your colleagues mentioned this earlier, about, being collaborative. And that's actually not hard for me. Like, I want to work with people. I mean, I'm a middle child, so naturally my proclivity is to find consensus. But the reality of this is this particular resolution did not reinstate ShotSpotter. That's the misinformation that's out there. What it attempted to do is to give procurement authority to a separate body, which is illegal. So for us, in good faith, to continue to show that we're collaborative, we'll continue to do that with RFIs.
So, requests for information, something that Johnson put out after ending the ShotSpotter contract. So they're going to try to get more information on other technologies. But again, Chicago aldermen are looking to possibly raise funds to focus on this.
Do we know what's so disappointing about, this effort to raise money for technology that has proven all over the country that it doesn't work? Is that they're going to raise $2.5 million for a single item that has proven its ineffectiveness, but work against $100 million that could have addressed housing and homelessness in this city.
So it's about priorities, I guess, and as much as what you want to spend your money on. He points to homelessness in the city and the cost of that, and people want to use this technology. He says doesn't work, but I mean, we've seen several stories since ShotSpotters ended of police arriving somewhere, finding somebody who was shot, and they didn't get any indication of shots being fired in that area, and therefore, people's likelihood of surviving such a shooting could be diminished quite a bit if there's not a strong response and a quick response. And that's something that supporters of ShotSpotter believe happens when you put it in areas where there's gunfire. But Johnson saying that they're looking for a wholesome approach, a whole forward and broad approach to fighting crime and public safety. And here's the mayor with those thoughts.
Here's what I've heard repeatedly is that it's not just the technology, it's the full force of government that, people are, very much committed to. Policing alone, technology alone is not going to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago. Everyone agrees on that. Again, on the specific item on ShotSpotter, look, the state's attorney said that it was ineffective. The OIG, Inspector General, said it was ineffective. Houston, San Antonio, Seattle, New Orleans, cities all over America have called into question the effectiveness of this particular form of technology. What I've said is that we have to have technology that works, and that we have opened up a process to give people an opportunity to weigh in on that.
We have seen, though, in other places where supporters of ShotSpotter lay out, it helped in, for instance, Mexico City, where you used ShotSpotter as a different tool that could be implemented. So some of the other things that were talked about, at least during the public portion of the Chicago City Council, you had people discussing the ShotSpotter technology. You had people discussing the demonstrations over the Israel-Hamas war. You had questions about lakefront developments. You had variety of different activists talking about political unity. You had a whole host of others that were discussing financing for projects in their communities and in local construction, and even some recognition of International Girls' Day. But clearly it's not a dull moment in the city of Chicago as they deal with a lot of these issues up front and center. All right. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell with America's Talking Network, and join us each and every weekday morning. Get the podcast where you get your podcasts at really anywhere. Just search Illinois in Focus, and you can make it happen. It's right here with America's Talking Network. I'm Greg Bishop. Be sure to get headlines at thecentersquare.com. On the November 5th ballot, a question about, should we tax millionaires 3% more to bring about property tax relief? That was something that former Illinois Governor Pat Quinn was in Springfield yesterday promoting. Let's talk about it. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, and you can get this show each and every weekday morning at 8 o'clock. Go to America's Talking Network and like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Get the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus, but also get the headlines at thecentersquare.com. So let's talk about the questions on the ballot. They're non-binding, meaning it doesn't matter what happens if a question wins or doesn't. There's no binding on it. All right, the legislators aren't going to have to implement these things, but it's a way to kind of gauge public sentiment. Now, rewind all the way back to 2020. You had Democrats pass the Progressive Tax Constitutional Amendment and put that on the ballot, and that failed. Voters did not want an income tax structure in Illinois that increases tax rates on if you make more money, instead of having the flat income tax rate that Illinois has in its constitution. And that flat income tax actually is pointed to as one of the only major attractive things in the state of Illinois, which regularly lists among the highest property taxes, among the highest overall tax rates, among the highest corporate tax rates, and so on. Illinois has bleeding population. People are moving out, according to not just the U.S. Census data, but also IRS migration data and moving company data. So clearly, there's seemingly an exodus coming out of the state of Illinois. What's driving that? Some may say it's the weather. Others may say, well, it's the high taxes and regulations. But obviously, the property tax situation is something that you've got former Governor Pat Quinn, again, promoting this question. But not everybody's, seeing it as Quinn and Democrats see it. We'll share some of what a colleague of mine talked with Republican State Representative Marty McLaughlin about. But here's Quinn yesterday talking about this proposal, and in particular, how he thinks that this could help raise a substantial amount of dollars from taxing millionaires an additional 3% to put into a property tax relief trust fund.
Law was passed in Illinois. I've included it in our release here. This was passed a few years ago, called the Illinois Property Tax Relief Fund. It's set up in the state treasury. I used to be the state treasurer, so there is a fund there to give annual property tax rebates to residential property taxpayers in our state. Over 3 million of them, according to the most recent statistics. More than 3 million people pay residential property taxes. So the unfortunate thing is there's no money in the Property Tax Relief Trust Fund. It hasn't ever been appropriated any money to give out these annual rebates. So the referendum that people are voting on this November provides a specific way to fund the Property Tax Relief Trust Fund to give rebates back to homeowners all across our state.
So the governor, former governor, he obviously is promoting this as a way to give money back to taxpayers. How much of an impact would it have? He went and found some of these numbers from the Illinois Department of Revenue on the total number of individuals who pay property tax versus those who are actually millionaires in the states.
And as you can see, it's over 3 million homestead exemptions homeowners are declared. And also we took a look at the number of millionaires in each county. The number of millionaires in our state that pay the Illinois income tax is over 77,000. I think it's 77,323. And the proposal on the ballot asks whether we should impose a 3% income tax surcharge on those individuals who declare more than $1 million in net income on their income tax in a particular year. That 3% surcharge, according to the Illinois Department of Revenue, would amount to their estimate $4.5 billion. $4.5 billion, which is a significant amount of money for property tax relief. This referendum that we're talking about in November would be the biggest property tax relief measure for homeowners in state history. So I think it's important that we get the word out that it's on the ballot.
So he obviously is saying that this non-binding referendum would bring that about, but that's not the case. It would just be, hey, legislators, this is the outcome of this referendum. Non-binding, it's advisory, it's just a question. It wouldn't actually trigger any kind of change in the Constitution, as the progressive income tax from 2020 would have if it advanced, but it didn't. It failed. Again, the governor, former governor Pat Quinn, I asked him how this is different from that 2020 amendment.
Yeah, it's completely different. Number one, this only focuses on those who have $1 million incomes. The referendum a few years ago did not focus on that. And frankly, that referendum did not expressly provide property tax relief. I think any amendment should include $1 million as the benchmark for where the surcharge would take place. And I also think it should mandate what is already in law, the property tax relief fund, that fund, which would be used every year according to law right now, the comptroller would find out how many homestead exemptions there are in each county, and then divide that number by the number of dollars raised by the millionaire surcharge. And that would provide an annual property tax rebate that would actually be put on the bill of everyone who pays residential property taxes. In my opinion, this is a very efficient, administratively simple way to give relief to people who need it the most. We can't just complain about high property taxes. This is a way to do something, and it's, I think, a smart way to do it.
So again, the former governor discussing this and its difference from the progressive income tax that was attempted to be passed, actually changed the Constitution, but it failed in 2020. State Representative Marty McLaughlin from Barrington Hills. He's a Republican. One of my colleagues chatted with him recently about this, and he's just critical of the entire thing.
It's amazing that we have to hear from former politicians like Governor Quinn that we don't give enough of our money to the state, that they need even more. And of course, when small business owners are the ones paying the taxes, guess what the first thing they're going to do is? They're going to reduce hours of employees, or they're going to automate every chance they can, and the middle-class workers are going to lose their jobs if we continue to put forth measures like this. And this measure is unconstitutional. It flies in the face of the graduated tax proposal that, the governor put forth, 2-3 years ago, and the voters rejected. But, the Democrat supermajority needs money because their appetite is never satisfied for spending. So this really is just another case of, we're going to go after someone else's money. The reality is these people they're going after are the employers of small businesses. They run small businesses in our state, and it's going to have an economic impact. So if people get behind this measure and support it, and they support it on the grounds that they're coming after someone else and not me, the reality is the middle class are going to be the ones that bear the brunt of it from job losses, and when people start to automate, and they will automate, and they will cut back hours and cut back employees if we go forward with something like this.
So McLaughlin, again, talking about how this would be bad for small businesses that may just get over that hump of making $1 million. But, those dollars are being used to invest in the business, to hire people, and to keep things going on with the research and development and such. But when it comes to government money, McLaughlin says COVID dollars drying up.
There is a concern that the government money is running out, okay? And for the money that was allocated during COVID that hasn't been spent, the concern is once that's gone, where are the funding sources going to be for these permanent programs that were put into place, the permanent spending programs? They can't just shut those off, right, because these guys are Springfield politicians. They don't know how to reduce spending. So they're concerned that there's going to be a need, and this is a new way of trying to fill that need for more and more money. The structural spending programs were put in during COVID. They weren't one-time, COVID spending programs. These things continue on, I mean, the most permanent thing in this world is a temporary government spending program.
So delivering a quote there from Ronald Reagan, which is an interesting one. The idea of the most permanent thing is a temporary government spending program. But back when I asked him yesterday, how this is different from the 2020 ballot initiative, but also are those dollars, if they were to approve this thing and get voter approval the next 2 years, right? Because this is how it could work. If voters approve this non-binding question, legislators would say, the message is clear from voters, and then they would bring about the actual constitutional language to change the Constitution to tax millionaires an additional 3% to put into a property tax relief fund. Again, here's former Governor Quinn.
Because Illinois doesn't have
Well,
a history.
it's a rebate. That's what it is. It's a refund. People understand that. It's very understandable to everyday people to get money back. And that's what this referendum is all about, and what the property tax relief fund that's set up by law already. It talks about annual rebates to property taxpayers. I believe in investing in education. We should do that. Every school district has to be accountable for how they spend their money. That's important. We got to keep an eye on that. There are levy limits around the state on units of government, and I think we should maintain those. And there are other things you can do to reform the system. But basically, what we have to do is do something, I think, urgent to give relief back to people who, when they open the envelope getting their property tax bill, they're staggered.
And he had a cartoon there about somebody getting punched in the face with their property tax bill. Let me pull this up there. You can see that here again from Governor Pat Quinn's news conference yesterday. But those dollars, are they safe if they do indeed pass this and amend the Constitution, get voter approval to do that? They bring in $4 billion. What's to say that money's not going to be swept from the Property Relief Trust Fund, which we see government sweep things all the time. Is there going to be a lockbox like there is for transportation dollars?
An idea of how they can craft a new question.
Yeah.
And have like a lockbox type of.
Yeah, well, you have that with the transportation amendment that passed a few years ago. No, you have to write in the constitutional amendment that people would vote on 2 years from now, specifics that are mandates, that the amount of surcharge is only applied to people who declare more than $1 million in annual income. The money raised from that surcharge must be spent on property tax rebates to everyday people who are homeowners, residential property taxpayers who declare the homestead exemption. That can be done, and I look forward to doing it. But I think on the ballot this year is an opportunity for the voice of the people to be heard on this issue. a lot of folks sometimes throw up their hands. What can we do? We don't have, unfortunately, in Illinois what they have in Ohio or Michigan.
And he goes on to talk about, having direct vote of being able to change laws and things along those lines. But regardless of where that money goes, as Quinn says, it would be a rebate back to the property taxpayers. But ultimately, where the money's coming from is from those who make more than $1 million. And that would include small businesses. Again, State Representative Marty McLaughlin saying that this could be bad for the state's economy.
This is a great example of we will have small business and mid-sized business deserts in Illinois because, my Democrat friends create all kinds of deserts through bad policy, food deserts, hospital deserts. They keep telling me, it's got nothing to do with our policies. No, if we create this policy, it'll create small business and mid-sized business deserts in Illinois. That's a good one. Do that one. And we need climate change. We need to change the business climate in Illinois. You can quote me on that.
So again, McLaughlin, with some direct quotes, he told my colleague to go ahead and put him down for, we'd create small and mid-sized business deserts, and we need climate change in Illinois, but business climate change. I asked Quinn to respond to those comments.
Yeah, I saw that comment. I don't think we have to worry about deserts for millionaires. I think what we have to worry about is everyday people who can't afford to pay their property tax bill losing their home. That is not good. And I think having reform where taxes are based on ability to pay, that's a principle in the Bible, and that's what we should abide by in Illinois. And by this reform of saying to millionaires, you will pay a surcharge on your income above $1 million, but that money is going to be used not for government spending on different things, but rather to give rebates back to the property taxpayers of our state, more than 3 million households who really desperately need help. They're not, as I said earlier, they aren't going to admire the money in the bank vault. They're going to spend it and create jobs in their local economy.
But one person's millionaire is another person's job creator. So we'll see what happens with that particular vote in November. Of course, the November 5th general election has multiple questions on it, that being one of them, about this millionaire surcharge. All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Join us each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, I'm Greg Bishop. You can follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air, and we can connect that way. Appreciate you guys being here each and every weekday morning with Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. Some of the things that I do want you to go and check out, though, get to thecentersquare.com, where you can see the latest daily poll information. And obviously, with the Center Square, we've got a team. We've hooked up with Noble Predictive Insights, and I do want to just show you some of this. This is the dashboard where you can find it at thecentersquare.com. And the 2024 presidential election, how are things looking? Well, let's go through this just briefly here. Kamala Harris is up 49, Donald Trump at 47. Again, that's the latest in October here as we head into the home stretch for the November election. So Donald Trump is trailing Kamala Harris, according to the Center Square's Voters' Voice poll. Joe Biden's disapproval rating declining a bit, approval rating going up a bit, but of course he's not going to be in office after January. The congressional race looks like the Voters' Voice poll from the Center Square has the Democratic candidate winning. Again, this is a national picture. This isn't from Illinois. This is a nationwide picture. But the wrong direction seems to be trailing downwards as well. So these are just some of the things you can find at the Center Square. You can even go through some of the key issues for voters. So find that polling data at thecentersquare.com. All right, have a great day. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning to wrap up the week with Illinois in Focus Daily. Get the newsletter at thecentersquare.com. Get the podcast anywhere you get podcasts with Illinois in Focus. And get with us in the live stream as well for the daily morning show, where you can join a chat room with a whole bunch of people on YouTube. Just get to America's Talking Network on YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We'll see you tomorrow for Fridays.